Hello and welcome to Simple Talks. This is one of our coffee topic episodes where we get to know someone in the technology community and drink some freshly brewed Java with them. I think he brought coffee, I brought coffee, mine's decaf, because I'm already hyped up enough for this conversation. That was cheesy enough. Okay, moving on. Our guest for the day is Huxley Kendell. He's a solutions engineer at Redgater. He's basically here to make me feel old, even though he's been here at Redgater longer than I have. He's been warned this is not a commercial. We're not going to talk about Redgater products, but one of my standard questions will in fact lead to some discussion of Redgater's products.
Yeah.
Hello, Kendell. How you doing?
Not bad. How are you? I'm excited to do something like this.
Excited. Cool.
Yeah, it's always been a big want, and I love listening to podcasts. And
So you've always wanted to be on a podcast that's just getting started. That's
the big goal.
got the scorpion shirt on. You're ready to kill it.
Well, this is from, Renee from one of my colleagues from Texas shipped this over to me, and it's been something that I wear on any Redgater event, and it's done me good so far.
I like it.
It's good.
Okay, so let's get started. So how did you get started in your career in tech? What was the impetus? And did you have any other careers in mind? Like I wanted to be an astronaut or a football player, that didn't pan out.
It's a weird one. And I think mine's quite a good one to talk about because I remember I'm the kind of person, I don't know, some people are similar, but I'm the kind of person where if I can't put 100% of my heart into it and I love it, can't do it. I genuinely just can't do it. So I remember going to like sixth form here, which would have been, I don't know what you would in the States and stuff, but
no idea what that is.
It's like in between high school. I'm at 16, 17, so right before you go to university, you kind of do a bit more specialized course. And I had picked business, history, and computer science and realized very quickly I'm only good at computer science. So I kind of got funneled into it at university, but I'd always had a big passion for computer science, but I remember always being in a more niche zone. I was never the best coder. I was never the best at, doing data science or anything like that. But what I always did love doing was talking to people.
Right.
But even when I was doing my master's, I didn't really know that was like a course or a job that you could kind of do. Like everyone I knew was doing hardcore coding or whatever they end up doing now of the data sciences. And I remember getting approached by Redgater saying, hey, like we've seen you do like a little bit of the demonstration. I remember working at the university, like teaching and trying to like show new members of staff how to use tools and the value it might give, and fell into a job that happened to be, hey, actually being able to do tech and talk is really key. And it's the one thing that I love doing. So I fell into it, to be honest.
It does kind of work out. Now you make me feel old and uneducated with this master's. Got a doctorate too? Are you working on a doctorate? Are you thinking about working on a doctorate?
That was my big, to the point where I didn't know what I wanted to do with either of my degrees, as a normal undergrad does when they don't know what they want to do for a career. You do a postgrad. So I did my master's to work out what I wanted to do. Couldn't work out what I wanted to do. And really, the goal after that was to do a doctorate and teach, because that was the one thing that I really enjoyed, was like sort of getting up and talking to people rather than sitting at a desk and coding all day. So I was going to do my doctorate, and then Redgater approached me being like, there's other stuff that you can do. Very much fell into it. But no, definitely doctorate was on the horizon, but I think another 4 more years of university might have ruined me.
My wife has a doctorate in education. That's a lot of work. The whole doctorate thing, to get that DR in front of your name, or PhD, she's an EDD.
But then Dr. Kendell's
that's just a lot of work.
It's got a bit of a ring to it, Dr. Kendell.
Dr. Kendell, it does. It does. Dr. anything sounds good. Dr. Death, that's even makes it a little less painful when it's Dr. Death and not just Death. He's Death. No, he's Dr. Death. He knows what he's doing. All right, so what technology gets you excited to come to work every day? What is the thing that you go, wow, this is, it's helping, or it's fun, or it's whatever?
I'm a big machine learning fan, and I make the distinction between that and AI, because I think AI gets AI is a big buzzword these days, and I'm a big
everything has AI in it.
Everything has AI in it, and it's always tools. I'm like, I don't think that needs AI. That could probably run a lot faster if you didn't have that in there, or it doesn't actually have it in there, and it's just smart code.
Right.
Machine learning, I think it's going to be really interesting in the ways, because you can kind of more direct it at stuff and get it to learn based on the data that we can collect visually and see it. I don't want, again, I'm not going to talk about any Redgate tools, but there are some aspects of Redgate tools that massively would benefit from machine learning, just being able to learn whilst it's working with the user. To be honest, the big thing that I enjoy that I don't really get to do as much as I want to do is cybersecurity. I've always had a big, big love of cybersecurity.
Really?
Yeah, I did the sort of Cisco PsyOps when I was at university, and I really enjoyed that. There's kind of two ways you can go. I couldn't do it as a career because in a career it's a lot of looking at numbers and it's a lot of looking at, but it's been nice to keep that as like a little third party like hobby that I have. I speak to people like Rob in the office all the time, and he's far more knowledgeable than I am, and looking at stuff like the social intricacies of how these attacks happen, and like the XZ backdoor, like that was a 5-year attack that they were doing, and for the last 2 years they were sort of secretly putting stuff in. And yeah, like cybersecurity for me is like, if I see an article, if I see something that's happened, I'll always want to just read it through and work out what happened and work out the step they take, because almost every time it was some human error that got them to.
It's always that.
It's always the.
But it's so hard to not. That's what it terrifies me about cybersecurity is that if you're doing that, those are the people you hear about in the news. Like you don't hear about the database developer or the coder. I mean, those people don't make the news much. Yeah. The new Disney app came out. It's beautiful, and Joe built it. No, you don't hear about Joe. But when somebody hacks that app, Joe gets named, right? They're like,
and it's
our guy here screwed up. It's his fault, not us. We tried to do it.
It's always that. But I just love reading it because it is always the social, and you can always go back and be like, oh, if someone at this point hadn't overlooked this, nothing would have happened. And you look at some of the costs that happen to some companies that get these sort of ransomware or get these sort of Trojan viruses coming in and start collecting data or leaking data. Like it's huge. It's huge amounts of money that these companies lose. Like the XZ backdoor one, that was a 4-year goal, and one guy spent 3 years pretending to be doing only good coding, only contributing to this open source Linux package for like 3-4 years, established himself, got a little bit more security and admin, and then started sneaking in backdoor code for about 2 years, and it infected hundreds of thousands of Linux machines that were running this simple package.
You'd think if you had that kind of intelligence, you could use it for good.
I know.
And not evil.
I know. And then they said like the white hackers don't get any accreditation either. It's always just this guy did this, and it brought down a lot.
And then you end up in jail?
Yeah.
That's not gotta be. That's got to be not fun for someone who's a programmer.
No.
Not, some big, tough person stealing things. This is a person who just stole a bunch of money and then got caught.
And they get caught, and it's always, they're doing it to these conglomerates as well. And there's always a good reason. It was not always a good reason. State that there.
Money. Money's a good reason.
But a lot of the times, like you speak to these, you get the interviews, and they make very good points about the way that, hey, we hacked in because they were handling the data unethically, or they were doing something that was wrong, and we wanted to expose that. And there's always something interesting. I can never be an analyst.
You just tell them, right? Just go to the people and say, look, this is what I see.
Yeah.
It's easy to get to. Fix it.
Yeah. I can never be an analyst because I think, one, it would ruin the hobby for me, and 2, it's too just data intense that I don't think I'd be able to do it. But man, when I see something like that, it makes me excited, and it kind of reflects into what I do in my day-to-day because I'm in quite a senior stakeholder position with these clients that I have. I have tons of clients that I speak to every week, and I'm recommending that they use certain repositories, and recommending they use certain code deployments, and you've got to really think. Like, some of my other colleagues work on like the monitoring side and all this, and there's not so many things that can go wrong there. I work on mainly automation, getting code deployed through loads of different gates, getting it into different environments where vulnerabilities will sit. Moving from domain to domain is where we're going to get issues, and having your code in a repository is where we might have issues, and deploying to production is where we might get issues. So every time I read it, I'm like, oh, I've got to be more, I've got to ring fence this, got to think about this, and it kind of does bleed into what I try and do every day. So it's always something I look into.
You mentioned fun a minute ago. So when you're not writing code for pay, or not doing this work for pay, what do you do for fun? It doesn't have to be programming. It can be programming.
I do
I do roller coasters, so it's not
Roller coaster.
definitely not a.
No.
Doesn't have to be.
I'm a big, and I can say this because I am. I'm a big nerd. I like dungeons.
Really? That was not something I picked up on in the morning discussion here.
No.
Nerd. That's.
I'm a big, like Dungeons and Dragons, massive fan, massive. And I think a big part for me is, I come from a family, so I got 4 siblings, and I'm one of 5. Every other one of the 4 doesn't, and they might get annoyed that I say this, they don't have the techie side that I have. They've got this amazing artistic side, and they do these huge paintings, and my brother's an architect, and my sister's a graphic designer, and I try and draw, and it's just the worst thing you'll ever see. So I don't have that creative outlook, and I don't get to do so much coding these days, which is my idea. It's always, a client wants X, Y, Z, or I need to come up with a new idea. So I don't get that creative outlook. So for me, my website where I get to write some blog posts which aren't sponsored, getting to go to sponsored events is really fun. But actually getting the creative outlook of, we've had a D&D campaign, but it's been going on for 4.5 years, and I've been writing the story for it for the last 6-7 months, and it's been really fun. It's been a really fun way of like telling a story, because you have to come up with a world, you have to come up with what you want them to do, and then factor in that sometimes my players just don't want to do what I've conjured up. I spent hours and hours writing this really cool story about where they're going to go and what they're going to do, and then I start the session like, nah, we're good, we're going to go this way. I don't have anything wrote that way, but what can we do? And we spin up that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's my creative outlook, and I've got, me and my boss are a big Warhammer fan, so building the little minifigs and...
Warhammer, I've never heard of that.
It's like, you see those little
okay.
figurines,
yes.
and you can sort of arrange them, and they have like stats and stuff, and I'm not so good at it, but again, my boss is really into it, so painting the little figurines, that's about the cap of my actual...
I was never good at that, nor was I trying to keep up with things like D&D.
Oh, you got to try.
I've played the video games, Bard's Tale, I don't know if you've heard of Bard's Tale, that was the first game
Bard's Tale, I don't know if you played the Baldur's Gate, which is...
No.
It's so good, it's really good.
I graduated into Mario games.
Yeah.
So I played all of the Mario games except for the most recent one, but
yeah, they're good. You should play it though. That's my next action for you, is get you to play.
I never had any D&D friends.
You play it by yourself. The Baldur's Gate though, it's a.
I meant to play the real.
Oh, but yeah,
play the whole kid and caboodle with someone making up stories on the way.
We got very lucky, because I joined a retail store when I was working at when I was at university, and just happened to meet some guys that you'd look at them like they're never going to be into D&D, and they are into D&D, and they've been doing it for way more than I had been doing it. So one day, me and my couple mates who had never played it before just showed up at their house, and you get to come up with a character, and I've had that character that I made up on that one day for 4.5 years, and it's genuinely evolved, and we're writing stories for it, and it's really fun. And the next chapter for me there is actually considering maybe me and one guy want to write a book, because we've got this really amazing story, and the difference between a D&D story and a story that you can just write down is, the story you write down is just your own ideas, but the D&D one, it's what you and 6 other people actually decided to do, and it's the interactions between me and your character, and so actually we've ended up with this really amazing, massive lore and story that we're thinking about turning into a book.
Like to sell, or just...
I never do anything with the aim of, and I think it's a good way to do it. I never really try and do anything, well, apart from work. But with the D&D, and it would be great. We have these massive aspirations. We always say it, if the book did well, we'd turn it into an animation of our characters. But the big thing for me is I don't have that artistic outlook. I've never done big writing before, so to be honest with you, it probably wouldn't sell. But it would be great to just have a, we did this. We actually can quantify in this book what we did for the last 4 years.
I've written tech books, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep yourself motivated, because once it gets hard, I tried to do some creative writing, and I just never did very well.
No, we've done a little bit, and I'm not relying on AI. That's most people would do that these days, but I really feel like you can tell when AI has wrote it.
It's really hard to tell sometimes.
I read a good report recently that actually the LLMs are starting to collapse on themselves. Have you read it's because there's so much AI art and so much AI fiction out there now that the AI machines are learning off of AI art.
Nice.
And the point of that, it's all data related, these language models.
Right.
And AI data, regardless of if it looks okay, it's filled with bias and it's not good at all. And actually a load of these LLMs are starting to collapse on themselves because they're just getting bad quality data. And obviously the data restrictions are coming in more and more for where they can source this data from. So a lot of them aren't doing so well. And the other issue with the AI is I ask it a question every once in a while and it will be so confident in its answer. And I'll read it, I'm like, that's completely wrong. And it's that issue of people use it. You need to have the foundational knowledge, you need to have the background for it, because you need to be able to spot if it's just lying to you through its teeth. And it will, like, ChatGPT will happily lie to you and tell you 1 + 1 is 5, and it will be so confident in its answer.
That's what I can't figure out. Is it lying or is it regurgitating someone else's incorrectness?
It's a bit of both, because the way the LLMs work is like a node tree, and it's going through all these decision points, and it's collecting the data, and it's getting itself, when it gives you an answer, it doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't have it said, well, I've gotten to this point and I have no more nodes to go to.
Right.
This must be absolutely correct. So when it writes you the answer, it doesn't have the ability to be like, well, I'm not sure, like a human does. It's I've got my answer, I need to type something that's going to give you the answer, so I'm going to be 100% confident. So it will give you the world's worst answer in the most well-written response ever, and a lot of people will just be like, cool, take that and put it in.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
And every once in a while you read a thing like, that's not even remotely true. That's not even, and the issue is like you tell it, okay, are you sure you're correct? Like, yep, absolutely. I've seen it make up references. I've seen it make up links that aren't even real links.
See, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
I understand it giving wrong answers, because clearly there's a lot of wrong answers on the internet.
Yeah.
Probably more, but I also don't understand how if there's 2 or 3 answers that it could get to,
Yeah.
it doesn't go, here's an answer I think is right, but there are other answers.
Well,
would you like me to show you those too?
That would be more useful. But what it sometimes will do now is it will see that in a web page that it had read or compiled into its data points, that it had a reference below. It's like, oh, I must supply a link.
Right.
And if it gets caught in the wrong cycle, like, well, I'll just make one up. There has to be one. It doesn't matter. I didn't check the link if it's true, so I'll just put one in. And this is the issue, is like these AI models are great and really good and really useful, but they're so early, they're so young, they're so immature,
Yep.
and people rely on them. A year ago, you wouldn't even use one for anything. Now, I know a lot of people who use it for half their day-to-day jobs and really rely on it and wonder why it's giving you really bizarre answers.
Oh yeah, you definitely need to know
And every once in a while,
an idea of what you're doing.
And every once in a while, I'll get an email from someone. I'm like, I can just tell that this is like, it's got like the emojis on either side of the header, and it's got everything like formatted in a really bit of a weird way, and the way it's typing to me is far too formal for how this guy normally speaks to me. And I'm like, this is just.
That's been my problem as an editor. A lot of these people who do write very formal.
Yeah.
When I'd rather them write conversationally at times. But when I check things for whether they're using that, it says they are, even though I know these same people have been writing for 4 or 5 years and writing the same way.
Well, yeah, and you'll see it all the time. People think that they have these. It was the same thing that my university had. They reckon they had a plagiarism checker. Its accuracy, I don't know. It's not high. And again, you've got the issue is of, some of the AI models are told to learn off of people that you've been working with for 4 or 5 years. So of course, some people are just going to get trapped in there. And it's going in 2 ways. A group of people are using it way too much, and then there's a group of people that hate it so much that they're accusing everybody of using it, when actually a lot of them are like, this is just my work.
Yeah.
And there's a middle ground there. Like with my blog posts, I'll always write it by hand first. I'll always put it through some kind of AI, and it's like, hey, can you just check that I'm not being stupid? It's like 11 p.m. and I want to schedule this to go out in the morning, and I just want to make sure that it's good, and that it's great for. Same for like code. If I write the code, I give it the code, in like YAML, it will find all my missing white spaces, or it will find all the variables that aren't being declared properly, whatever it might be, and it will tell me straight away. If you say to it, okay, can you write the improvement? Oh man, I was juggling with it yesterday. I was getting it to write a very basic SQL statement, and it was just going so overly complex. And I remember you have to type back to it, and you have to be a little bit rude to them.
Yeah.
So when the uprise comes, I think I might be the first to go. Because I'm not talking to these things very nicely. And you say to them, like, I'm asking you to create 2 databases, and it's declaring it in an array, then it's doing a for loop through all of them to create them. I'm like, hey, by the way, you're making 2. You don't need this crazy for loop and these pointer variables. Like, just make it like you normally would.
Agreed.
But it can't. So I don't use it really too much anymore, which I think is a good way to be. We'll see in a couple of years. I think it'll be better in a couple of years.
Yep, it'll be scary in a couple of years. All right, so the last predefined question that I ask people is going to be inspired by our State of the Database survey.
Yep.
But all of your experience has been here at Redgate since university. So how did your experience in university inform you of the real world, or was it completely disconnected like most of us? I mean, I went to college back in the 90s, so things have changed a lot.
I've got to be careful here, because I'm a big believer that STEM degrees are really...
Nobody in Redgate's going to hear this, so...
No, I don't know about Redgate.
Just
no, but...
be mean about them, it's fine.
No, not so much Redgate.
This is a great place to work, by the way. Yeah. Just saying.
Well, we're doing this at 11 a.m., so it's a good day. No, but I'm a big believer in people going to STEM degrees, especially women going into STEM degrees. I remember going back to a couple of places that I used to be, and I try and go back to uni, and I try to push people to go into these STEM degrees because they're so valuable and they're so used everywhere. But you are right, there's like this huge disconnect between what it is. Yeah, to be honest with you, and I think the better way to look at it is it gives you the foundation that you need to go into these jobs, but the jobs that you have to go into have to be tailored for graduates. They have to be tailored for, I'm going to take you and I'm going to make you forget a lot of what you learned, and I'm going to make you relearn it. But because you've spent 3 or 4 years doing it, you're in a position where actually you can go about it. And I remember at my university, they had a module called scalable databases or something, and databases is literally my day-to-day. Every day I write blog posts on it, I make uni videos on it. It was the worst course ever. It was the worst course ever. It was all about one-to-one, one-to-many, and blah, blah, blah. Like,
those are good things. You really need to know those things.
Really great things, but the way they teach it is just not what it should be. They don't kind of give you that hands-on, and it's quite a short module. And this is the issue I had with my computer science degree. Was it's a 3-year course, and there's about 50 different modules that come under the umbrella of computer science. So actually, you end up doing one module, which is, for reference, like 3-4 months, half of your 1 year.
Right.
That's it. You never do it again. So I did, 3 months of scalable databases in my 2nd year of university, and then never touched SQL ever again. And you'll do it for all of them. So you kind of have to treat that bachelor's as a bit of a, I'm just going to use this to get my core knowledge down, like my basic coding, like my object-oriented programming, like data types and different ways that you can code and different ways you can go about.
They still teach processors and how to write a compiler and that kind of stuff, or? Really?
It depends on...
Because those are the things that actually kind of help me in day-to-day, which not... Like, I haven't written a compiler. I wrote my compiler in Visual Basic. Yeah. I didn't get a great grade on that, by the way. But because I know how an integer works, I know an integer's faster than a numeric. Yeah. And I know that's faster than some other putting it in string. I know that those things are faster because I can envision sort of how things work internally.
Again, it's going to be different for every uni, but like the one I did, like I did like a little bit of Ruby development, and then that kind of feeds you into the big O notation, which is like the logarithmic for how good a piece of coders, and they teach you that, and they teach you how to do the math and how to work it out, but they don't really teach you this is what you want. At no point ever, if one of my clients said to me, oh, we're running an O log n, I'd be like, what? Just show me the code. Like, we can look at the code, and you get enough, but there's a lot of reading in between the lines, which is what I don't like with university. The other thing that I don't like with it is where I was. No one at university ever told me, hey, like, there's a wide array of uses for this degree that is not sitting down behind a screen and coding all day. Like, I know everyone upstairs, they're amazing, they love it, and there are a group of people a big group of people, mind you, in a demographic of people doing a computer science degree, a big chunk of them don't want to get up and do talks or talk to customers or anything like that. They love being who they are, and they like coding behind the screen.
I love giving talks. I do not like talking to customers.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of things you have to be careful, more careful with that.
But then there's that middle ground.
I'm willing to do.
I know, I don't want to be presumptuous, but like 70% of the people I graduated with wouldn't want to get on a stage and talk to customers, do a talk. But everyone's different, and they don't talk about actually what would be more useful is hey, this is a really sought after degree, and you can do so much with these STEM degrees that are not directly in this track, like sales engineering, like being like we had the advocates, and that has a technical background to it. And even if you go into companies that isn't a computer science based job, having a computer science degree means you can foundationally turn that into something else. And knowing that, I didn't know it. If Redgater didn't approach me, I was going to go into cybersecurity and be bored staring at numbers all day, when I've always been a talker, and I've always been a get up and I want to be with people, and I want to show you, and I want to do this and help you build something together. I never would have known that. So actually, the bigger disconnect that I found with uni was they kind of just teach you, we're going to make you a coder in 3 years. And I think that's the wrong way to do it right now.
That was totally not my experience. It was kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Code was on the side, but architecture was...
Or like architecture, but it's always going to be you're a DBA, or you're a developer, or you're a system architect, or you're a DevOps engineer. Like, you're going to be one of those people. Not that you can take the learnings and you can help people, or you can go into sales, or you can go into other STEM that isn't just computer science, and it's not just sitting behind a screen and doing this. Because some people love it, but I also know a big chunk of people that don't love it. Like me, I did a webinar this morning, and that went really well. I'm talking to you this morning, and then doing a webinar at 3 o'clock for 100 people. Like, that's my perfect day. It's running around, and it's being chaotic, and it's talking to as many people as I can, and it's...
I thought he was a programmer, people. I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut this. No, he's completely right. There's all sorts of jobs. I also find it interesting how many people who are coders who were not CS degrees.
Yeah.
I knew a person at Microsoft a long time ago who was one of the higher ups in building SQL Server, and he didn't even have a high school certificate from, I think he was in...
And I think that's...
He wasn't from America, I
think that's so important. Like, people don't... And it's why I'm trying to be a big pusher of women going into STEM, because I don't know what happens at high school or lower that makes... They don't push these women, they don't push these people into... They don't let them know that it's an option, so they don't realize. And even now, if you're 16, 17, 18, if you're 25, if you're 30, if you're 40, like, you can do foundational courses on coding quite simply, and it's so sought after. If you go into an interview and say, oh, I actually know a little bit of PHP, or I know a little bit of C++, or whatever it might be, they're like, nice, hell yeah. Like, that gives you, even in this job, like, we're not going to expect the sales or the support or anyone like that to be doing in-depth coding. But if they come into this job and say, I do know coding, which means that I can tie it to the databases, or I can tie it to what you sell, or I have that foundation and it gives me some kind of introductory knowledge into what you're talking about, it's really important. So it's like doing an apprenticeship, do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go to uni to get these skills. And I say it to everyone I train. I train most of us members of staff here, me and my team. I say to them every time, like, you don't need to know this, but this is what's going to strengthen your career. Having a technical background in this day and age is what's going to make you even better. And no, you don't need to do what I did and slog through a 4-year course to get 2 degrees that I don't use every day. There's so much you can do in between that will give you that. And again, it's just such a valuable skill. So I try and push it as much as I can.
Okay, so you're for it and against it. You've just said you don't use it, but you should get one.
Well, I know, and that's my sweet spot. Is I don't at any real point sit behind a screen and spend a day writing C++. Never.
Right, and that's there's way more to a technical career than that.
But what I do.
But that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to talk to people.
Yeah. And for some people it's great, but also there's that middle ground of actually the reason my degree was so useful is not because I sit behind a screen and I do that, what those guys do. Actually, it's because it taught me how to understand tech and it taught me how to talk to people, and it gives me that I do coding, but I do it with customers in it. And I learned how to debug code really well, and I learned how to talk to people who maybe don't know things as well, and how you explain that to them and how you guide them through a journey. And that's a really important skill, and you can learn that skill without a degree.
If you're listening to this, I'm nodding my head in agreement. If you're watching
really
you already know that, so
Yeah.
just calm down, it's fine.
But yeah, I think there's a big, now is the best time, I think, to learn, get some kind of course, get a, do an Azure Foundations course, or do something, take a Python course, because in 10 years' time, and we're seeing it at Redgate, suddenly everybody needs support with their databases because it's where this world's going. It's a information world. Everyone needs to be on the website. Everyone needs to have a database. So actually, what was 20 years ago, more niche specialized companies were doing this, and they could hire a bit more.
Hey, he's so young, it hurts. 30, 40 years ago, people were doing
30, 40 years ago, people.
That was when it was maybe niche.
Yeah, people were a bit more niche, but what we're seeing now today is actually, going to a company that doesn't even sell tech, having that background is going to make you way more of a stronger candidate than it will someone else. And 10 years' time, there's going to be even more companies that are technological. In 20 years' time, AI is going to be a foundation in every company, not just Redgate and more specialized technical companies. And suddenly, actually having any core knowledge that you can use and relate back to is going to be massive for your career.
I think the only thing that may stand in the way of that is energy and how much it costs to do that. Because that's been crazy. How much, I think my first database had like 500 megabytes.
Yeah.
And that ran in a whole organization, not like, my home checking account. This was like a whole organization. And now 500 megabytes doesn't store one customer's information, much less.
And the other point is the energy cost of how much these LLMs are costing. I think, don't quote me on this whatsoever, but I read somewhere else like a percentage, like a 1-2% of energy cost for the US went to training AI LLM models. I'm like, oh my God.
So it can't keep going.
No, it can't. And with the way people have been with energy these days, there's not as much green and renewable, so it's going to hit a cap at some point. But
we're getting there.
We are getting there. We are. But I think that's my big takeaway. If anyone's listening to this and you see, go find a foundational course if you don't have it already. Go find a Python course.
And there's a lot of it.
God, there's so many.
Books. There's.
Well, Harvard do that free one, which is really good. So that's one that I've checked out and I've recommended to other people. There are Python courses literally everywhere, and almost all of them are free. There are books you can get secondhand that will teach you it, but you'd be surprised, just going into an interview and being able to, that 0 to 1% knowledge is such a difference. Because you ask someone who has no technical knowledge right now, a technical question, and you see their face just sort of go back. If they've done a little bit of a foundational course, you'd be surprised the difference that gives you in your answer. Because at least you can be like, oh, I did this, and that taught me, this, and I don't know much about that, but I bet I could translate it from there to there. That answer is so much stronger than I don't know, I'm not technical. And as time goes on, that answer is going to get way more and more valuable to companies.
The only thing worse than I don't know, I'm not technical, is making up an answer.
Mm-hmm. And that was the first
That's the worst.
That was the first thing my boss taught me, which is, it's fine to not know the answer. God awful if you try to lie. Oh my God. And the thing I learned very quickly is they can tell. They can tell. And this is the big thing. People don't mind if you don't know. I'll be talking to clients and they'll pull out some third-party legacy CI/CD tool from 30 years ago that I've never heard of before. And like, oh, so you know how to use this, right? And I'm like, I've never heard of that in my life. They like that. You know, these are developers.
Yeah.
This is their day-to-day. And I'm a big developer nerd, so I can say this. We like feeling smart. It's nice to be able to explain something to someone that doesn't know it. So giving them an opportunity to very quickly run you through something that you don't know, they are very fine doing that. But if you try and lie or you try and make up an answer, they'll get you. They'll get you good. And I've had it a few times where I'm not directly lying, but I think I know the answer. I know not enough to give a good answer, but I try and fill in the gaps. And they're like,
And just like AI, eventually you'll get caught.
and what, you get caught, especially with these developers who use these tools every day. Man, they know it a lot more than they give away that they know it. And you try and give an answer and it will stand like a sore thumb if it's not correct. And they're not shy from being like, no, you're wrong. And there's nothing worse than that.
So you want to tell people where they can find you, or I can tell them?
Yeah, I have a website, which is huxleykendell.com, which is HUXLEYKENDELL. There's a certain celebrity who goes by Kendall that ruined my name with an A.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, huxleykendell.com. Like I said, we're not trying to push Redgate, but we do really cool stuff. And a lot of the work that I do is aimed to be free and community-based. So if you're interested in what we do, like this is not a sales push. This is I primarily work on the free tools and I primarily work on helping people. So check it out. There's some interesting.
He's getting close to I would be buzzing him right now.
Yeah.
I have a rule. We're not commercial whatsoever.
It's on my website. So it's all on my website. It is somewhat commercial, but it's my free blog post and it only links to free tools and that's where I like to be myself on. So go there.
All right, I think that's the end.
Hell yeah.
It's been great talking to you.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for taking the walk down the hall to
I like it being
record
down
this.
here, and it's a nice studio, so thank you very much.
Thank you.